And speaking of conversations, we have another great panel that I'm going to ask to come up and join me. And it's a panel of regional area legislators, policymakers, and they've been so kind, careful coming up the steps, to join us this evening to just have a conversation about a couple of things. Like, public education right now tends to be oftentimes seen in more of a negative light than we think it should be, and just talking about why. Why is that the case? And then also asking them to just lift up like what they see as some of the wins that we have in public education right now. And then hopefully walking away with, as community members, as teachers, as leaders, some ideas for you to be thinking about how to engage with your policymakers. Because public school superintendents, individuals alone cannot make a difference in this effort. It's going to take all of us collectively with a loud voice that public schools are doing a really great job, and here's why. And when we have legislation that comes up that's somewhat problematic, being able to talk to that and share the other side of that. So that's what we hope to come away with this afternoon as we have this conversation. And our esteemed panelists this evening, we have on the left here, hi, Mr. Huff, good to see you. He is our senator here for since 2022. He began, though, his public service career in 2011. He was initially a Missouri House of Representative, then a Greene County Commissioner. He graduated from Missouri State University with a bachelor's degree in political science. Well, I love this part. I like the fact that you're a first-generation rancher, because it actually fits with a lot of what our kids were interested here, and I love that. So we're so thankful that he has that background support. And then next to him, we have Betsy Fogel. And Betsy is a representative for District 135. She was elected to her first term in November 2020. And prior to that, she spent her career in public health while serving as Director of Program Advancement at Jordan Valley Community Center. Then we also have with us this evening, kind of with that different view, we've got the Senate, we've got the House of Representatives, and then we've got this fortunate opportunity to have the Missouri State Board of Education president with us, Mary Schrog. She's from West Plains. She was appointed to the state board actually in 2009, and she's chaired several key initiatives, including legislative priorities. She led the Blue Ribbon Commission on Teacher Pay and Retention. She's also the founder and chairman of physical therapy specialist clinics in West Plains and Mountain Grove, and has served as project manager for the Missouri Health Foundation. She supports rural schools in southern Missouri. Previously on the MSU Board of Governors, she has quite the resume, and we're so thankful for all these folks to be here. So my hope, friends, go ahead and grab a mic. I'll just get a little closer. So, we're just going to have a dialogue, right? We're just going to have an honest dialogue about public education, because I happen to know that...
How honest do you want this to be?
We've got 30 minutes.
Exactly.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
And so,
with the lights,
yeah,
I actually can't see anyone, so this is going to be like wildly honest.
Good.
Yeah.
We want that. We want honesty, because that's how we get better, right? So, honest conversation, safe place. So let's start with the good stuff, the celebrations. So from each of your perspective, what are some strengths of our public schools today?
Go, Mary.
Can you hear me? Is it on? Great. So we have dedicated teachers and leaders in education. I think that is the first most important thing that we need to celebrate. In fact, I want to share today that Harbor Freight awards 25 scholarships for $50,000 every year. And this year, we found out this week that 2 of our educators in the state of Missouri. So when you stop and think there are 50 states, there were over 1,000 applicants, and 2 of the 25 winners came out of Missouri. I think that's something to celebrate.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mary. About the other 2, what would you celebrate?
You know, I think for all of us up here, we agree that public education is really one of the things that makes this country the greatest countries in the world, that every kid, regardless of income, ability, race, anything, religion, has the opportunity to go to a good quality public school. And I think that's something that we do well in the state of Missouri, and something that I hope that we continue to do well in the state of Missouri is making sure that every child, regardless of where they're born, has access to a pathway out of poverty, and we do that through investments in public education.
Love that.
So when, and I'm going to call her Betsy because she's been a friend of mine for like, I don't know, couple decades probably. So when Betsy talks about funding in public education, the entire time that I've been in the Senate, we have fully funded the foundation formula every single year. Okay? Last year that was close to $500 million on top of what the annual appropriation was before that. I think it was $497 million, predicated on a Senate bill that was passed the year before that had some school choice, which I'm sure we'll get into this, Pam, in a minute. But it had some school choice provisions in it. But with that had, in my opinion, the largest increase in public education funding in probably a couple of decades. When those bills come due, your legislature should pay them, okay? So we made, I was, at the time I was the appropriations chair of the Senate committee, and we made an investment in public education, which is what Betsy's talking about. It was $300-ish million on top of what Governor Kehoe allocated in his state of the state, because we believe in what you do. We believe in the next generation in the state. Like when we talk about, and Governor Parson always talked about workforce development and infrastructure improvement, like public education is the foundation of what the next generation of workforce looks like. So as long as we're there, we'll continue to do that.
We appreciate how you shepherded that last year, all that process, political process, to get that foundation formula fully
You don't want to know
funded.
how that actually happened.
I think we might be interested if you... We're going to actually have an after the conversation over at 14 Mill. Let's
We're
get
going
into
to do
that
like an
there,
after
okay?
hours happy hour thing.
Yeah, let's do it over there. So you kind of alluded to this, but you know, you've heard our kids talk about the great things that they're involved in. So what do y'all think? What is the connection between innovative schools, real-world learning, and really future workforce development? What do you see as that connection, and why is that so important for us to be talking about? We're talking about public schools. What's the connection to workforce development?
So I believe one of the best connection is the Success Ready Student Network. And because the legislature has been so generous, and because Senator Huff did such a great job of shepherding forward, it allowed us to have money to be able to create some innovative educational opportunities. And I want to share another great success about Missouri this year. So Missouri was the only state in the United States to receive $1 million grant from the federal government for our ability to develop the assessment center around our Success Ready students. That is a big deal. And it was very exciting news. And I think sometimes this information doesn't get out. And I'm a little unsure why we don't pick this up. But we should be very proud in Southwest and South Central Missouri, because of the 37 schools, I would say 2/3 come out of this region. And they work very hard to be able to do that. So thankfully, we have great legislators who see the value, that help us with the funding, and now it is pushing us up into a national spotlight on what we're able to get accomplished. So thank you.
Mary, thanks for shouting out about the IADA proposal for the new test. Lots of acronyms. If you're in education, we love our acronyms. Yeah. Anyway, it's this federal grant that we have to do this innovative assessment. And so we've got 5 years to pilot and figure out a new way to think about assessment that involves a through year where you bank how kids are doing along the way to get that summative score instead of just that one end of the year snapshot. So there's lots of potential with that. And we're looking forward to collaborating with DESE to design like those next steps. So thanks, Mary, for shouting
And
that
I
out.
think educators and our legislators, they want to see the continuous learning. And it is through this project that you all will help us develop that ability to show progress as our students go along. That's what parents want to know. That's what educators and community leaders, that's what your local school board members want to know. They want to know how you're doing.
And who best to field test that than our educators, right? Versus
Absolutely.
it coming top down. So the question at hand, just to bring us back, that connection of innovation and school-based learning, real-world learning, and workforce development. I think it's important we make that thread.
Yeah, I'll jump in quickly. I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the great work that our school district, both Senator Huff and I represent Springfield Public Schools, which is the largest school district in the entirety of the state. And I think Springfield, our superintendent, Dr. Lathan, is here tonight. Thanks for being with us. But I think our school board members, I know I saw several in the audience, have been really visionary and innovative in terms of opening up school choice programs for students that call SPS home. And when I was there, I was a Parkview graduated in 2008. We didn't have an ag school. We didn't have an aviation program. We didn't have a performing arts program. And I think those opportunities for students are invaluable, and I look forward to seeing what they do in the future to expand those opportunities for all students.
Thank you. How about you? Where's the connection with workforce development?
I think the connection is in the opportunities for. So here's a personal example, right? And I think my ex-wife Sarah is here somewhere. She's on the Springfield School Board. We've got a almost 12-year-old, right? So he's in 6th grade. William had 4, I think, Sarah, opportunities for where he would go in 6th grade. All within the Springfield School District. Okay? To me, that's what school choice looks like. That is a district that says we're going to give every student every opportunity we can think of to do what it is that they think is going to, and their family thinks is going to make them better for the future. Like when we talk about, I mean, we can talk about workforce development. We can talk about what we need to do to educate, the next generation. What we need to do is give them the opportunity to go out and see what it is that they want to do and then support them. Okay? I raise cattle. I raise beef cattle. I've told my boys from day one, I will be behind you with a bucket of dynamite if you want to do this in the future. But if you want to go to Rolla, if you want to go to S&T, if you want to go to MIT, I'm all for that too. Do what it is that you find a passion about and go chase it, because that's how we make this world, and that's how we make this state, that's how we make our community. You do not want me to get on a soapbox right now about what I think about politics.
Maybe we
It is, yeah, I mean, you might. It's a tough business right now.
Right. And that's a nice segue that we're going to talk next question about why we're in the situation there. But I just want to piggyback on something that you just said. You noted that you wanted your student to have lots of different opportunities to explore what they wanted to do. And yet in the past, a lot of times, it's just been a few kids that have had those opportunities, but all kids should have those opportunities. And that's the whole notion. You heard these kids talking here about what they don't want to do. So they don't go into a college major and invest in something they don't like. They find out really all the way down to kindergarten, the different opportunities that they have and different experiences. And you mentioned Springfield, great example of a lot of different pathways kids have. But a lot of our schools, we have micro schools, we have academies, and kids are exploring so many experiences beyond what they ever had in the past. And we feel that needs to grow. That's a piece that needs to be a focus of the future when we're thinking about educational policy.
And when we talk about workforce development and we talk about educating and, as Senator Huff said, giving our children great experiences, I would be remiss in not mentioning the alliance development that just occurred between SPS, MSU, Cox Hospital, and OTC. So when we talk about starting kids young, exposing them so they know what they want to do, but by having the Alliance program in place, this allows a pathway in for our students immediately into good paying jobs, and they can take whatever track they need. And since I am in healthcare and I realize the shortages and the needs we have, for us it's thrilling as a profession to know that we're going to have future really excellent candidates coming through the system.
Yes, another great model of real-world learning. Thanks, Springfield, for leading the way on that Alliance initiative as well. All right, so we're going to do a little switch here. So these are all the great things that are happening, but you know, the elephant in the room is that really public school has a target on its back, and it's a noticeable shift that's happened in the last several years. Why is that? Give us some backstory why you think that's
here's
the
the
case.
backstory. So I got elected in 2010, started my work in the Missouri House in 2011. In 2011, probably maybe 2012, there was a guy named Tim Jones who was our floor leader, soon-to-be speaker, and the idea of education choice, right, comes up. And the short version of this story is when I'm in the House, first term or two, education choice gets, actually, oddly enough, we're in Nixa, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Woke up in Kansas City, Nixa now, Branson earlier today. So we're in Nixa now. So your representative actually carried the bill to, and I don't know what it was some education choice bill. It got 46 votes in the House. Okay, so in the House you need, Betsy, am I right? There's 163 of you guys, like 297. You need 82 to pass anything. That bill got 46 votes, right? You need 82, it got 46. Because at that time, the rural educational community still had a pretty big stick. And again, you're getting this is the term limited version of Senator Huff. So you're getting kind of an honest assessment of how this looks. So 46. Fast forward to last year. Board, we call it the board because like in the House they have you guys have like an electronic thing that you got a new one a couple years ago. It cost a couple $1 million. Thank you, taxpayers of Missouri, for paying for the new board that the House got. Held the board open on an education, quote, reform bill for, I don't know, 24, 25 minutes. Ended up getting 86, 87 votes. So so this is 2025. So I started in 11. The shift that you've seen in politics, in educational, quote, choice, in the last decade is like sharp, right? And I never want to come into these things and say, you're to blame, because you're not to blame. But here's what, and Sarah and I have talked about this ad nauseum. Here's what you need to do. Go talk about the good things that you're doing. Because I'm tired of being the Republican that tries to stand up for public ed when the rest of my party says, we're not doing enough, we're not doing a good enough job, they're not educating these kids. Like, go out and talk about, like, my 6th grade kid, which I talk about him all the time because William's a super sharp kid. Go talk about the 4 options of 6th grade that he had to go into before he started 6th grade. Like, that's educational choice right there. Like, I mean, Springfield's doing it.
And I would like to piggyback on this. I agree 100% what Senator Huff's saying. I have, of course, only been on the state board since 2019, but I grew up down in Thayer. I went to public ed. I feel like I got a great education. My daughter went to West Plains. She went to public ed. She got a great education. I'm going to brag. She's president of Cox Hospital, 37 right now. I mean, public ed turns out great students. And I agree with Senator Huff. We don't talk enough about our successes. So I think we have to, one, understand the reasons and how we got here. And I think there were some acerbations with COVID, because I was on the board when COVID hit, and I think there was a lot of tensions. I think there were things that we had to shift about how we did education. I would actually argue that even though I would never want to go through another pandemic, it might have helped facilitate some positive changes. And I'm excited about that. And when I saw our public schools really step up and figure out how to be flexible and innovative and adaptive, and they did that well. So now at this point, we have to be sure that we understand the complaint, we understand how to address the concerns through messaging and sharing the successes. And that's why I started out with sharing successes, because for whatever reason, we don't want to talk about the successes like we want to talk about some of the challenges. And yes, every organization, every business has challenges, but I mean, when I see Republic School, they hosted an event with legislators, board members, and community. We had about 75 people come. It was fascinating what they're doing with agriculture and with their tech. When I look at what Reed Springs is doing down in their area, when I go over into the Boot Hill, which is actually the 8th Congressional District where I represent, some of the innovative work they're doing there, they're doing with Southeast, they're doing with healthcare. I mean, it is impressive. But you have to share your story, and also if you are truly interested in healthcare, you have to reach back and ask and find out what we're doing and how we are successful.
Yeah, and I would just add, in politics, I've served in the state house for 5 years, and I quickly learned it is way easier for politicians to tear something down than it is to build it up. And public schools, as Mary said, every organization, every system has problems, and we need to address those. But the solution to that is to not tear down the public education system that has served this country so well and this state so well for so long. Last year, to Senator Huff's point, was the first time in Missouri State's history that we are going to spend general revenue on vouchers to send kids to private schools. The first time in our state's history that we will now be sending children to private schools that don't have any of the accreditation or certification expectations that you guys have. No locally elected school board can discriminate based on a lot of things. During the budget cycle this year, Senator Huff and I worked on this, but I went through every single private school that was a recipient of the voucher program the year before, and very clearly on a lot of them, on the front page, it would say, if your child has any level of disability, this is not a school for you. If you have anybody in this family that affirms that homosexuality is an okay thing, then there's no room for you in this school. If you're not a Christian subscribing to these beliefs, there's no room for you in this school. So for me, when I look at the future of education in Missouri, this year what we saw was $50 million getting put into a voucher program for private schools, and initially the governor recommending that we underfund the foundation formula, which is our statutory obligation to all of you in this room, the promise that we made to our schools that we would spend per student in a classroom, underfunded that by $300 million. And I am always the first one to give credit where credit is due. Senator Lincoln Huff single-handedly put that $300 million back in the budget. There were a lot of people that helped with that effort. It was the right thing to do, but he deserves the credit for that. And I also want to say, because of that, he suffered some pretty significant consequences in the building. And as someone who was elected to always do what was right for the city of Springfield, it's an honor to sit on the couch with someone who shares that.
Great. Thank you for lifting those celebrations up. We appreciate you. We appreciate all of you. We very much see that you're supporters of our work. So we need your advice. All right, so we've doubled the number of folks that are about supporting choice. And I know we need to tell our stories, but tell us how to tell the story, because we try to tell the story. We try to invite those legislators that are not as positive as we'd like for them to be in our schools. They won't come. And we try to tell those stories when we go visit them. They're just oftentimes closed-minded to some of those things. So help us. How do we truly engage and get them to shift their thinking just a little bit? How do we open the door?
So if we're going to be honest, the number of students that go through public ed, which is approximately 85%, and that's on a national level, not just in Missouri. Private schools around 10%. Again, these are approximate numbers. 5% would be in homeschooling and other, an alternative. So as far as sheer numbers, we outnumber them. If we are talking about what we're doing, if we are bragging about the successes we're having, and I know we're from the Midwest, we're not supposed to brag, but I'm just saying, sometimes tooting your own horn is not a bad thing. We have many good things going on in public education, but we need to be talking about it. And I agree that sometimes people get a very negative impression, and I have people just bring complete misinformation to me. And in fact, I'm just going to give a quick example here. I had a lady come to me, and she wanted to know why we had cat litter boxes in all the girls' bathrooms in the public school, which I thought, besides the fact that it was absurd, I said, can you imagine the work that the janitors would have to do to clean up kitty litter throughout the school? Because if you had kitty litter in the bathrooms, it would be all everywhere, right? I don't know where this misinformation comes from. I'm not even sure why people would share it, because we all have our expectations, and I don't always get it right. I totally understand that, but I do think that when you look at sheer numbers, and I'm going to tell you another thing I think we all need to get involved in the electorate process. I know sometimes people are like, I don't really enjoy politics. Well, Betsy and Lincoln, they are our leaders. They are making decisions for us throughout the state. They're making decisions for our kids and our future. How can you not get involved? And I thank you. I believe very strongly about that. I feel like every educator should go vote. I feel like every parent should go vote. I know I vote. And in fact, I absentee vote because we can in the state of Missouri, and I am always afraid that something will come up. And only one time since I have been of age to vote have I missed an election. It was over a rainstorm. I got there at about 7:02, and they told me the polls were closed, and they meant it. And I've never forgotten it. So please, get out and vote. Get out and support those individuals that you know will make a difference.
Yeah, I'll just quickly add, it is kind of shocking if you have an elected official who is not being responsive to your request to come to your school. That is a really big problem. The most important thing we do as your General Assembly is fund our schools. We pass budget bills in a specific order. Number one, public debt, which thanks for getting rid of that. We no longer have any. Number two is education. It is the most important thing that we do as a General Assembly. So if your elected officials are not willing to come to your schools and see what's working, what's not working, then I would choose a different elected official the next time you go back to the ballot. Second to that, come see us in Jeff City, but more importantly, connect with us when we're home. When we're in Jefferson City, legislative session here in Missouri runs January through May. That is not the time to have in-depth conversations with your electeds because we are doing 18 million things. It is much better, at least for me, to be able to sit down when I'm back home and in district, have us come to schools. SPS, again, I feel like I'm getting an invitation for something that you're doing every single day, so thank you for that. But make sure you're including your elected officials and opening up your schools. Transparency is key. A lot of what I hear as an elected from people who are hesitant or maybe apprehensive about public schools is they don't feel like there's that transparency. And I think I can, again, just highlight SPS. I think you've been very intentional about building out opportunities for families and the public to come in and see what you're doing, which is a lot of good work.
Great advice, yes. How about you, Lincoln?
Oh, I don't actually know what the question was.
Let's go back to that question.
Yeah.
All right, so we've
I
got...
mean, there's been like a good conversation here.
Yeah, well, so we've got these kind of naysayers that really don't want to come visit our schools. Like, we're trying to tell our story. So how do we actually get those folks more engaged to see the good work?
Good luck. Again, like the unabashed version of me. I come from a family of educators. Like I said, my father was the dean of the College of Education at Missouri State. My mother was a homeroom mom that raised both my brothers. Turned out to be, well, I mean, my little brother's a fake doctor. He's got a PhD. My other brother's an actual doctor with an MD. And then, and then just, I mean, you've got a family of educators. Your sister's a a teacher and has been. I don't think there's any more important thing that we can do for the next generation than to support their educational opportunities. And again, like I do not mean to put this back on you, because I know going to Jefferson City is an imposition. I know it's 2 hours from here. The way I drive, it's about an hour and 10 minutes. But like, it's a day off of work. It's a day away from your families. I get it. The work that we do and the arrows that we draw for standing up for you all are not always easy to take. And I will, on open mic night, take this opportunity. And I have not said this publicly in, the last 3 weeks of interviews that I've done since our last special session, but I'm going to tell you guys exactly what happened and why I am no longer the chairman of the Senate Appropriations Committee, okay? So after this last special session, 15, 20 minutes after the special session ends, our President Pro Tem walks into my office, kicks 3 other senators out, says, "Want to talk to Lincoln for a minute?" Yep, fantastic. She sits down and says, we're tired of fighting with you. And I said, "Cindy," her name's Cindy O'Laughlin. She's actually a nice lady from Shelbina. I said, "Cindy, what are we talking about? What have we been fighting about?" She said, "The majority of your committee last year did not want to fund education, and you did it anyway." And I looked her dead in the face and I said, "That is the 3rd time in the 3 years that I've been chairman of this committee that this budget and every 13 of the bills that have come out of my committee were voted out unanimously, which means every Republican in my committee and every Democrat in my committee voted for it. Because they believed in the priorities that we were moving forward." And she came in my office and she said, "We didn't want to do that." Now, again, since it's open mic night, I'm going to tell you, Republicans like to say we should treat government like a business, okay? I mentioned earlier I actually raise cattle, right? Like, I don't subsist on the, what do we get paid? $30,000, $40,000 to do this job-ish, 30-ish, 40-ish, whatever. So we get paid $100 a day to get yelled at by people all over the state all the time, okay? When I buy my fertilizer in the spring for my farm, Schrables, who are out in Bodark, want to get paid. Cindy was in my office and said, "We didn't have to fully fund that foundation formula increase." Again, and I'll throw a bunch of numbers at you guys. It was $497 million over the previous fiscal year. Predicated on a Senate bill that was passed, which I stood on the Senate floor and said, "Hey, everybody, if we pass this bill, it's going to cost $500+ million next year." And everybody's like, "Yep, nope, sounds good, no problem." And Cindy, who cannot dispute this, and I will be more than glad to have this conversation with her in public on the Senate floor next year, said, "We don't have to pay that bill just because we passed the legislation." Folks, I got a problem with that. Because if we have, and I called our Senate Appropriations Director this morning just to double check, because I actually check this almost every day. We have $3.5 billion in the bank. $3.5 billion worth of general revenue in the bank right now. There's almost $600 million worth of unencumbered capital improvement money, which Cindy has also said we're not going to spend on renovating the Capitol next year. So, again, not super good at math, but that's $4 billion. And then we have, quick side note, another $1 billion that we put on the side as a, quote, Medicaid stabilization fund, because Medicaid grows at about, usually, $250 million, maybe $300 million a year. So whenever the feds backed up the Brinks truck during COVID and said, hey, here's, like, again, no joke, $5-6 billion, state of Missouri, they just, like, backed the truck and said, here you go. I put $1 billion on the side. And we put it in a fund called the Medicaid Stabilization Fund that hopefully for the next 3 to 4 years will keep up with the organic growth in that population. So again, to me, that's almost like, that's 5.5, almost $6 billion worth of money in the bank. And I've got a president pro tem of my Missouri Senate who says, we don't have to pay that bill. Guys, that's wrong. And if I lose a chairmanship over doing what I think is right, there's not a thing in the world I'll do different.
What a champion for public education, all three. We're getting close on time, and so
Thank God.
we thank you for pulling back the curtain and helping us think forward to this next legislative session. So we've got not only educators in the office, we've got parents, we've got business community, and our idea is that it's going to take more than just educators to rethink what's happening in this mindset about public education. So knowing there's money there, give us some action items. How do we take this information and as communities make a difference with it? Really get in the ear of our legislators to better understand what they could do with this money. So give us some next steps, some action steps. As we talk to legislators, as we work with legislators, what does that need to sound like, look like? Give us some talking points.
Well, I'm not a legislator, but
state board members.
We have 2 legislators here, but what I will tell you that I, as a state board member, what I don't love is getting a bunch of postcards from a group that really, there's nothing individual about it. They just have printed them off, they've had someone sign them, they put them in a box and they mail them. And I'm going to be really honest, we're all busy. I'm not as busy as they are, but I am very busy. I'm not going to go through a box that is a foot by a foot by a foot and look through. Just, if it's important to you, take the time to do an individual note, an individual letter, and I would say be specific. Let us know how it is impactful. One of the things I know that as we have mandates that come down, for example, like with education, our students can't go to school more than 7.5 hours a day. They're just not going to learn if we have them there for 10 hours. So sometimes we have to trade things out. And we did have an issue where some of our educators lost their planning time. And I know that's very difficult because I know there's a lot of work to be done. But at the same time, there was no way for us to be able to meet all of our obligations. So those individuals that took the time to kind of explain it to me as a non-educator who's in healthcare about how that impacted, that was meaningful. And those are still individuals that occasionally I reach out and say, hey, tell me how this impacts you. So I think that's one suggestion.
Great tip. So Betsy and Lincoln, we're kind of curious, what do you guys value the most, your colleagues? Is it emails? Is it the number of emails? Tell us what makes a difference? Is it the number of people?
Sarah will tell you, I don't read email.
Okay, what do you count?
All right, this is how I always say it.
How does it work?
Let's see. In person is better than a phone call. A phone call is better than an email, and an email is better than nothing. If you are doing your job well as an elected, you are keeping track of every constituent, what they reached out about. When a bill crosses my desk, I know exactly how many people were in favor, exactly how many people were in opposition. Also, reach out to your elected officials, both when you disagree and when you agree with them. Oftentimes, I think people only reach out when they disagree, which means For me, in my example, everyone knows I'm a huge proponent of public education. So I typically don't have people that are reaching out to me to talk to me about the importance of public education because they know I'm with them on the issue. But it's still helpful to let your electeds know, so then you have kind of tangible, concrete evidence as to why you're voting one direction or the other. And then I would quickly say, and Senator Huff mentioned this earlier, I know it's hard for us to come in this room and talk to educators and try to encourage you to do one more thing in your day. We already know how hard you're working. You're expected to educate our children, clothe our children, provide mental health services to our students. Like, we put a lot on your plate, but advocacy is really important. Let us know what you need. Have tangible asks. It is really hard when we have meetings with people and at the end of that meeting, there's no tangible solution. So let us know specifically what you need. I think all three of us worked really hard on pay raises for our educators. That was a tangible thing we could hold in our hand, and I'd like to do more on that work, I know, or in that arena. I think all three of us would, but let us know what the tangible asks are. And then the final thing I'll say, and Mary hit on this, it is all of our responsibilities to change the culture in the tenor about how we talk about public education. And it is our job as elected officials, it is Senator Huff's job as a parent to fight equally hard for every child that calls SPS home and every child who doesn't, as it is his responsibility to fight for his own two kids. And I think that we're all called to do that in public education, to make sure we're equally championing each child who calls our community home.
Anything to add? Lincoln, what do your colleagues pay attention to?
Have you seen the Senate lately? I mean, no, Betsy's right. So take this last special session, because we do, I joke and I say I don't read email, but I do, and we do keep track of how many people email and call the office. 732 people prior to the vote on redistricting the congressional maps called my office or emailed my office and said, we think this is a bad idea. One called and said, I think this is a good idea, which oddly enough was not in my district, because you can track that stuff. So we do pay attention when people reach out. And again, I never mean to make more homework for you all, but I will also never skip an opportunity to say, you should know who your state representative is, and you should know who your state senator is, okay? I represent the city of Springfield. It's 160-some thousand people. When you're in the House, you represent 9,000 people. You run into us at the grocery store, you run into us at church, you run into us at your kids' ball games. I'm not saying you have to jump us every time you see us, but you should know us. And I think, and I've always thought, if you're doing this job correctly, you should be open to, I was picking Sam up at Field the other day, and I had a mom come up to me and want to talk about some random thing. And then she apologized, and I said, don't apologize. That's my job. That's what I signed up for. That's why I'm here. She said, well, I don't mean to make this a political, thing. And I said, Casey, don't worry about it. That is our job. So get to know your people, and I'm not saying you need to talk to them every single day, but shoot them a note and I'll be honest, every now and then a nice note saying, hey, I think you're doing a good job, Bets, would not be the worst thing in the world. Just there's a lot more of the, hey, we hate you and think you suck. At least for me, probably not for you.
We need to do more thanking you for your service, and we do appreciate that. I'm kind of being cognizant of time, but I do want to just recognize that the advocacy work that we're talking about doesn't just fall for public education on educators. Like our message is actually, if it's coming from a parent or a business person, it's actually oftentimes listened to even more so than just the educators. And there's actually one topic that I would be remiss if I don't just mention, because that would have actually been a nice transition to close out the night. But I know my superintendent colleagues will just not be happy if I don't bring this up. This whole notion of, like, we're relooking at the finance formula, and then we're also like having all these pieces of legislations about property taxes. And we happen to know that we're a state that is number 7 as far as local funding and 50th when it comes to state funding. So I can't leave that topic off the table. I know you guys were going to stay just a little extra time, but we got to talk about that. Give us some insight on what you think we can do to advocate to keep property taxes at.
Yep. So I'm the guy that at 1:30 in the morning in Mike Henderson's office, when another senator who represents a portion of Greene County walked in and said, "Hey, we're going to do a property tax freeze on Greene County." And I said, "No, you're not." He said, "Well, it's going to be on the ballot." And I said, "No, it's not." And he said, "Well, I mean, we're going to have to talk about it on the floor then." I said, "Fantastic. Let's talk about it on the floor, Curtis." Like, I look forward to that. Because because when this conversation came up, I called a few people. I called the mayor of Springfield, and I called the presiding commissioner of Greene County, and I called the police chief, and I called the fire chief, and I called the school superintendent. And I said, "What do you guys think about this idea? Freezing or capping at 5% property taxes in Greene County?" And they were like, "Well, that doesn't sound like a great idea." I said, "Okay, good. I'll be happy to stand in the gap and say, not for Greene County. Like, I only represent Springfield, so I'm not going to step into somebody else's district. But you have got to have people who are willing to stand up and say, this is not what my community," like, no, I didn't call 100 people, right? I called 5 or 6 or 8 or something like that. And every one of them said, "This doesn't seem like a great idea." I said, "Great, then we're going to stay out of it." And I don't even, like, I'll be honest, I don't know the number of counties. Maybe you do, but like, is it like 90 or something? Like, there's a lot of counties that are getting ready to have on the ballot either a property tax freeze or cap at 5%, which, by the way, guys, this is a perfect example of, like, kind of politics run rampant over an issue that happened in a specific area. And this is, like, mostly predicated around Cass County. Okay? Kansas City has got, like, a problem, I guess, with their assessor. And a lot of people are pretty upset about the rise in property value, like assessments. Again, like, I raise cattle. I'm not always super excited whenever I get the "congratulations, your farms are assessed at a higher number than they were the year before" letters in the mail, but it is what it is. But I don't believe that we need to jump in as an entire state because we got one issue in a specific area. Like, I mentioned that Sarah's on the school board in Springfield. Go run your district. If you don't like how your county's being run, change who's there. I've always said that. Like, if you don't like how your school's being run, change who's on the school board. If you don't like how your city's being run, change who's on the city council. If you don't like your mayor, get a new mayor. I don't care. Like, people want to complain about Columbia right now and the crime. Well, fire Barbara. I don't know. I mean, her name is Barbara Buffalo. Like, I mean, that's the mayor of Columbia.
All right, I'm cutting
Go
him
ahead,
off.
go ahead.
Yeah,
Betsy, please intervene.
yeah. Everyone was asking for it. I was the only one brave enough to do it. So, quickly, I said this earlier, but again, in politics all the time, I see frequently, it is easy to do the politically expedient thing. It is easy to go to your voters and say, "I'm going to eliminate your taxes." That's a pretty popular thing to do with the electorate. But you know what else is pretty dang popular? Good public schools, a public safety net that when I call 911 at my house, someone responds immediately. When there's a fire down the street, firefighters show up. Those things are also pretty popular. So it's finding that line, making sure we have the resources that we need to live in the society and in the state that we all want to live in, while also not overtaxing our electorate. And we can have an argument and we can disagree. I'm sure the three of us would have three very different opinions on what that looks like. What I am not comfortable with is continuing down a path where we are underfunding our schools, where we are privatizing what was always meant to be a public good for all children, and sending tax dollars to schools that we have no local oversight of. As Senator Huff said, if you don't like what your school board is doing, it is a lot quicker to drive the 5 minutes to your school. For some of you that have smaller school districts, maybe it's more like 20. It's a lot shorter drive than it is to come up to Jefferson City and talk to us. I think the more we can keep power centralized and as close to the people as we can do that as possible, it's a good thing. So as we head into the next few years, I think my gravest concern as a General Assembly is what we're going to do with our public schools. And the governor, this is an area he and I happen to disagree on. I think he's been pretty public about wanting universal school choice by 2027. Well, if we have declining revenue, if we are continuing to implement tax cuts, if we have a federal administration who is choosing to pass legislation that reduces the amount of revenue coming into Missouri and not increases it, the big, beautiful bill blew $1 billion hole in our state budget. We are going to have to figure out where to make cuts from in the years to come, and public education is one of the buckets that will get cut. And I think it's really important that as we look to the future, we're not underfunding and under-resourcing our children, because each and every kid that calls a public school home, and not even our public schools, all schools, homeschool kids in private schools, but it is our obligation, the two of us, and Mary in her role, to make sure that our public school children have what they need to be successful. And I am nervous about the years to come and what that will look like. And finally, I will say the governor did convene a school funding modernization task force. And my fear, based on his recommendation in the budget this year to cut the foundation formula by $300 million, my fear is that signals his intention, and you guys might disagree, and it's totally okay if you do, but that signals his intention to spend less per kid in a classroom, and that is something I'm just not comfortable doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your honesty and candidness. We really appreciate that. We need to know these things. That helps us to do our job of being advocates for the kids that we saw up here tonight. And Mary, you want to finish us off?
I do. I want to address the task force issue, and both Lincoln and Betsy have expressed a lot of the concerns that we also on the state board have experienced, because in order to have a really strong public education system, we do have to fund it. And things do cost money, but even though we did increase our teacher pay, our minimum pay to $40,000 this last couple of years because of the legislators sitting up here and because of Governor Parsons and other legislators that work with us. I mean, $40,000, we are still in the bottom. We're like 48th or 49th, depending on how you want to look at. I mean, let's think about that. Our kids are performing at 36th and 37th on a national level. It's not where we want to be. We actually would like to be in the top 10 or 20, but when you look at Massachusetts, they're spending on the average about $20,000 per student. I represent the rural areas. I actually represent the 8th Congressional District, which is the Boot Hill over to West Plains and Mountain Grove, just south of Springfield up to St. Louis. It's a very large area. The vast majority of my schools are very small. And those schools on the average get about $6,800 per student. So, I mean, $20,000 per student, $6,800. I mean, you all have personal budgets at home. You understand that difference. We do have to have our legislators really advocating, and I think the most important thing, because like I said, we still have the vast majority of our kids going through public education, is that public education is the foundation for democracy. It is the foundation for us to have an educated population. It is the origin of the American dream. If you're not educated, if you don't have access to education, how are you going to live out the American dream? And I just want every child, whether you're from Thayer or West Plains or Dora or eminence or wherever you come from, I want you to have a chance at that American dream. I got it. I think Lincoln and Betsy got it, which I want to mention I've known them since they were in college and high school, respectively, so I'm a lot older. But I want everyone to have that opportunity. So thank you for what you're doing. Lincoln, thank you for your transparency, and Betsy for really sharing as our rep. We really appreciate your work.
And Mary, thank you as well. Let's give this team a round of applause. We so appreciate. We learned a lot. And hopefully, come on up, gentlemen, and if we could have the next slide, you're walking away thinking, hey, I want to help support public education. And so we actually have this group called Go Key Communicators that we are hoping all of you will sign up for and keep this opportunity going of really sharing with our legislators and our policymakers how important our public schools are. So with me, I've got Tony Rossetti and Matt Pierce, and they help lead that Go Key Communicators program, and they're going to take just a couple of minutes to talk about that opportunity, and then we're hoping you're thinking about going over to 14 Mill, right off of Main Street in Nixa, so that we can continue the conversation. They're actually having an appetizer special, and I'm thinking if these guys will join us, we can have some great after the conversations. So before you leave, hear about Go Key Communicators.
Thank you, Dr. Hedgepeth. Excuse me. Go Key Communicators is something that we do during legislative session mostly. We have some onboarding sessions, but we try to meet every other week and learn about what's happening in the state legislature and what bills will impact education and how we can advocate for ourselves and make sure that we're communicating with our representatives, legislature, or representatives, senators, and state board about the good things that are happening and how things that maybe aren't so good legislatively might impact us.
Yes, so if you are inspired by what you've heard today from our students to our legislators and would like to get together with some people to discuss how we can make next steps to maybe build better relationships with our legislators, to how to communicate with others about some of these issues that will come up along the way, getting together with this group, collaborating and networking with one another is a really good place to be. We only meet 4 or 5 times during the legislative session, and if you have the opportunity to participate, we'd love to have you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for leading that work. Thank all of you for being here. Hey, if you're a teacher, thanks for what you do. We so appreciate you. And parents, keep doing a good job with those kids. And legislators, policymakers, we so appreciate you. Let's keep fighting the good fight. Thanks, everybody, for being here.